listeners and watchers to come in.
Yep.
Our lovely participants. Oh, yes, there we are, nice and live. um, Pete, if you want to send out the tweet and get everyone in so chat can help us with audio, make sure they can hear everything.
Tweet's gone out.
Excellente.
And yes, we are live.
Let's see. I'm going to pull this up here so I can see chat. Um, Come on in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, look,
Okay.
I forgot we
Can
get
hear you all
ads
right?
now. I forgot we're like
Oh,
actually real and we have
yeah.
ads.
It didn't
That's
come.
weird.
I, yeah. We hit affiliate status the other week, so that was a really strange change.
It's like, oh, we made
Right.
six
Nana's in.
cents.
Right.
Ah, there we've got one.
uh,
Hello, Nana.
yeah.
Um,
Is the levels all right? Can you let us know?
yeah, definitely let us know. Because we were working with a lot of different levels today. A lot of
Yeah.
different thingies. I need to actually record, don't I? Yes, you do. Okay.
Yeah. I'll start doing the recording on my end. Obviously, when we do the podcast section. So,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Um,
Just letting you know.
okay, so we generally give chat about 2 minutes, and then
Yep.
they fill up and they tell us about our day, about their
Out
day.
there, Dave.
Or you can tell me
Yeah.
about my day, but that'd be a little bit creepy.
I don't know about your day. My day's been weird, but that's neither here or there.
uh,
So, uh,
yeah.
I guess we should introduce our guest,
Okay.
really, shouldn't we? Just for everyone watching, we've got
Oh
Joe
yeah.
Donnelly here. He's
Yes.
an
Woo.
author,
Very very
you
happy.
know,
Thank you very
I'm.
much for having me.
accomplished author and writer for very, very various outlets. You know,
Yeah.
I won't list them
Well, we
obviously because we'll
we
probably
we
go into
can
that in a
list them.
bit soon
I was
anyway.
gonna
So,
say when we do the actual introduction, we will list them. Um, let's.
we're really low apparently. So,
Yep, I'm
according,
working on
uh,
that now.
okay,
If I
fine.
I had only one cup of coffee today, and that's never good. I need all the coffee.
I'm surprised you didn't get one actually before we started.
I wanted to, but then I was afraid, like bad luck or something. I don't know. And then my computer froze anyway, so. Um,
Yeah.
oh, that's right. It opens it in a different window, doesn't it? Nana, our level's coming up. Are you able to hear us better? Let us know. Oh yeah, we're up. We're definitely up. I don't want to pull it up too much more, because I will be screaming in everyone's ears, which is never good.
Nope.
Okay, I think I've got us. Okay, good, very good. Thank you so much. Oh crap. Oh
Excellent.
look, you got to see me messing around with my settings. That's not
Yeah,
embarrassing at
I
all.
know. It's right over my face.
It is.
I mean, it's a mild improvement.
Are we frozen? Did I freeze it? I did, didn't
Might have done.
I? Oh my gosh.
I'll try and reload my stream to see if it does fix it.
Oh
My end at
goodness,
least.
guys, what a day.
Of all the days, it would be today, wouldn't it? That we have
Yeah, of
all the
course it
issues.
is. Not when we're like BSing during the week.
Yeah,
Oh goodness.
Excuse me.
that's all right. We didn't have all these technical issues on Friday either, which is
I
more
know.
unusual.
Oh, Friday was so fun. We did
Mm.
a dramatic reading of the Apple versus Epic emails that were leaked.
I saw that on YouTube earlier on. I stuck it on just to. I wanted to see what you guys had done
Oh, okay.
most recently.
Right?
Yeah,
I've
Yes.
picked up a
Yes.
few things over the last few weeks, and
Uh,
it was
that
really
was.
entertaining.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh, thank you very much. It was
Mm.
so much fun to do, but I
it
do
really
not envy
was.
Kylie's like workload having to go through all of those emails. Hey Sophie, you right?
And Emily and Sophie, hello. Thank you for
Oh, Emily
joining
as well.
us.
Yes,
Yep. Yep.
my
We're
stream
gonna.
just caught up.
Yeah. We are looking at a great show today. I know I say that every week, but this time it's really special because we're
This one's
interviewing
very different.
Joe Donnelly. Very
Oh,
flattered.
you did point the right way as well.
I did. I'm not
Excellent.
backwards. Look at that.
I mean, obviously, it comes up on Discord very different from me, so it looked like
Yeah.
you're pointing to me on that one.
Sophie, we're very glad you could join us on this one as well. It's gonna be a
Thank
good
you so
one.
much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're just
I've been really looking forward to this one. A lot of time spent doing various amounts of research on this.
yeah, but the fun, good kind. You know, reading books,
Yeah.
which is like, oh, that's research. You know what I mean? It's like I do that anyway. Okay.
You can have a test at the end.
Yes. Oh, great! I forgot to study.
Please don't put me on the spot. I was never good in test situations.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay, we're giving chat one more minute, and then
Yep.
they'll trickle in as we go because a lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
most of our audience, believe it or not, is American, which is
Yeah,
hilarious to me.
Yeah, I mean, UK-based podcast. It's got more listeners in America than
In
anyways.
America
I-
and Ireland, like the Republic
Yeah.
of Ireland. That's our two.
I reckon that's your doing, Kylie. They just like hearing the American accent.
Frightening thought. At least it's not my real accent. Hey y'all, how y'all doing?
Right, if you were getting tired later on, it was going
Yeah.
to come out eventually anyway. But
Y'all just come on in. Sit yourself down. Yeah. Let's work on my non-regional accent. Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead. Is Mike in yet? I know Mike wanted to be here for this one.
I'm not sure, but
Um,
I know he won't be here for the whole time because 4 o'clock Liverpool
Yeah.
are playing, obviously. So
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Joe. I not one to follow UK football. I saw in chat there was a ton of football games today. People had to choose. Am I right, Pete?
the final game of the season, so every game all played at once.
So what a great day to be doing this. Emily, it's funny because you don't realize how Texan you sound until you start recording it, and then I hear myself and I'm like, I don't sound like that.
I mean, you have those moments. You talk like you do now. That you have those moments. You slip into it just naturally.
Yeah.
I suppose that's probably the case anywhere you go. You become accustomed to sort of the regional accent, don't you?
Yeah, I've been told by a lot of people back home that I sound Irish at times, and that really cracks me up. I'm just like, what?
I can't say I've ever heard it, to be honest.
Oh gosh, it's purely the Americans back home, and that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, so chat wants us to they want Pete.
Oh my
They
God.
still want Pete to do a hot tub stream.
Why does this hot tub meta keep going on?
I won't let it die.
I know you brought it up originally because you were saying about call me Kevin, and now it's just become a meme on our end.
He raised $40,000 for
I mean,
charity,
it's
not for
impressive.
himself, for charity. You could do that. You could raise more. Wow, yeah, we are getting quite a bit.
Just I'd be surprised if I get 40 quid out of it.
40 quid to make you turn on the camera.
Yeah, that one donation just end the stream.
40K, yeah, that's crazy. And yes, Emily has made a little Texas joke. We do refer to all, what are they called? Sodas, all, whatever. We call them all Cokes. It doesn't matter what
Fizzy drinks.
Fizzy drinks, yeah. I drink Pepsi Max, and I call it a Coke. So. But anyway, if you haven't figured out, Joe's Scottish.
Glasgow native. That's I probably should save it right at the start. I try and speak as slow as I can, and like you're saying about relaxing, as things go on, I start to speak really fast.
Yes!
So if at any point you can't understand me, just shout at me, and I'll go back to speaking a bit slower.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm more than familiar with Glaswegian accent anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be able to pick up on most of it. But yeah, if
Uh,
the chat has a problem, then we'll keep an eye on it.
one
Keep
of
nice
our
and slow.
writers, who hopefully will join us today, I believe he's from Glasgow. Is that right,
Hmm.
Kieran?
Kieran, I believe yeah,
Yeah,
believe
um,
so.
I believe so. Uh,
Yeah, we got review writers from basically all over the world anyway, different, mostly UK based, but we've got a few over in America as well.
Hmm.
yeah, it's really
I think
great.
we've
It
got
is
one in
really
Australia
immersive.
too.
Really, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the
Okay,
guy that I did the Scott Pilgrim review with is Australian.
right, very good. I didn't realize that. I stay in my little hidey hole and
Yeah, underground
I forget to
in
connect
your
with people.
studio.
I'm always in my studio working like a little gremlin who never talks to other humans.
Uh,
Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and start.
we'll start the
And
podcast recording. Yeah.
yeah, and then as chat comes in, chat here, I want you to feel free to ask questions. We won't get to them till towards the end because I really want Joe to tell his story. It's an amazing story.
Hmm.
And Emily, I don't know if you caught it earlier, but Joe is from Glasgow. So
Yeah.
she was asking where's Joe from.
So yeah,
And
feel free to ask questions all the way through the chat. Obviously,
yeah.
we will
Oh,
get to them
Squash is
at the
here.
end.
Hey, Squash.
Hello.
Yay. Looks like our crew's joining in. Uh,
Yep.
and then uh, we're going to have links and things for Joe's book,
Hmm.
which I highly encourage. And as we do this interview, you will see why. I highly
Yep.
encourage you to pick it up.
Yeah. I'll pop all of those in the show notes
Yeah.
anyway on both on Twitch, VOD, YouTube, and the audio player as well.
Yep. Squash says he has been looking forward to listening to this guest. I know he has.
Yeah, he's been
We've got
putting
a
it in the
lot.
Discord a few
We've got a
times.
lot of excited people here for you, Joe. They've
Lovely.
been
Thank you so
waiting for
much.
this too.
Under
um,
pressure now.
well, no, no, no.
No
The
pressure,
opposite,
honestly.
the
It's going to
opposite.
be
No
as
pressure.
relaxed as possible.
Yep.
I think
Um,
you'll find very quickly that our interview style is more relaxed than anything. It's not formal. Don't worry about that.
it usually involves me drinking, so I'm gonna put this over here. Uh, oh, I also see my giant sports drink.
Oh
This
yeah,
this
they're like
was okay. When I said I had one cup of coffee, it was this.
look. If you don't live in the UK unless you have one of those mugs.
Oh my gosh, I wish I have nothing to compare this mug to for our American audience. We don't have anything like this. It's as big as my head. Look, I'm not kidding. That's not a joke.
Mm.
um, yes. Squash might have to drop out, but that's fine. He'll catch the VOD,
Uh,
which is good.
Well, yeah, it'll be there for people to watch afterwards or listen
Oh
to, whatever
yes,
your
it's
preference is.
and it will be uploaded to YouTube as well, and also
Mm.
on the podcast, so it will always be accessible. We're big
Yep.
believers in that. And yes, I agree with Sophie. Sports Direct mugs are elite. um, okay. Wow, we do. We have a full chat in here. Oh wow,
Actually,
it's so
just
great.
before we go live,
That's
just
beautiful.
before we do the podcast section, I'm just going to check that the sound is coming through on my
Okay,
program. All right, so one sec.
absolutely.
We'll just talk for a little bit
Hello,
and just.
Sonic Master.
Hello.
We're so glad that y'all are trickling in. It's awesome. Uh, we've got a great interview lined up today. Pete is testing audio. Do you need me to do anything, Pete?
No, give me a moment because my sound might just go off for a second.
Okay. Well, that's good. Ah, yay! Overlord Mike, founder and creator of RRUK, has joined the chat. We jokingly call him Overlord. He's like the nicest person on the planet, so it's ironic and I love it. He's such a harsh taskmaster. Pushing those reviews out every day. Speaking of which, head over to www.rapidreviewsuk.com for all of your reviews.
Yeah, we're good. Sorry, my
Good. Okay.
program I use dropped sound out because I have to go and check the audio
Yeah.
the other file. So
Okay.
Kieran is here.
Oh, hey, Kieran.
Our Hello. You're right, Mike.
Yep, Mike's
The
here.
Overlord
Kieran's here.
himself is here. So
Oh yeah, Pete missed all that. Yeah, I was explaining
yeah,
Overlord.
I thought
Yes.
so. Yeah, but
Uh, Kieran, no, you don't have to answer this, but I believe you're in the general area of Glasgow. I think so.
we
Is our
hope.
guest. So hopefully it will
I'm
be a
sure you've told us
familiar
before.
voice. Be like me having a texting on. I'll be like, oh, just talk. But okay. Oh yeah.
Told you.
Mike says getting a little nervous for the Liverpool game in half an hour. Oh gosh. Okay. We'll try to hurry this
Yeah,
up. We'll run through
yeah,
this very important interview as fast as
yeah.
possible.
Please don't tell me the score because I don't want to know because my team is playing yours,
Oh my gosh. Who's your team, Pete?
Crystal Palace.
Okay. Again, I don't know.
Uh,
Oh
they're,
right.
they're,
Okay. Kieran's
well,
30
they're
minutes. About 30
southeast
minute drive.
southeast London. They're like 30 minutes from my house by train, so they're technically my local team.
Oh goodness. Oh dear, dear, dear. Um,
Nice.
yeah, it's so funny because I play sports, but I rarely watch them. It makes no sense. I don't know because I start watching it. I think I want to be out there. You know?
Fair enough.
So it makes me get hyped, and then I have to go do something like skate or kick a ball or something. But anyway,
Fair enough.
okay. I think we are
Okay,
going to
so we're ready.
begin. Yes. You want to do the countdown?
Okay, so I'll do the usual. So I'm gonna count. I'm gonna start the recording now. So 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to episode 79 of Rapid Reviews UK. It's, or Rapid Reviews Radio, I should say. And we have a very special episode, and I know I've said that a million times before, but this one is really special. It's the specialist of all the specials. We have a very, very, oh God, I'm just repeating myself, special guest.
Go.
uh, Writer, author, just everything with a stunning story. Joe Donnelly is joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
We love it. We are so thankful that you decided to join us. And then, as always, I'm joined by my ever-present co-host, Pete Beckett.
Hello.
I forgot to say my name. I'm Callie Wild, and I will be your other co-host. And,
It always happens when we have a guest on. You always
I
get a
get
little flustered
excited.
in the
I do.
intro.
I get like wigs. I'm like, okay, forget about me. I want to talk about the guest. But speaking of which, since this has actually been, we haven't. It's been a while since we did a podcast. I mean, we
Few
did last
weeks.
week's, yeah, but it was more of a filler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, Joe, why don't you tell us how's your week been?
The week's been okay.
Good.
Like we were saying before we started recording, I live up in Glasgow and it's rained all week. Apparently, it's been the worst May since 1983, which is even before I was born, so that's a very long time ago.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been fine, but Glasgow always rains, so it's just another summer in Glasgow. But yeah, what about you guys? How you doing?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm over here in Belfast, and it too is the worst May they've ever had. It's been solid raining, with threats of thunderstorms, which is so weird because compared to exactly 1 year ago, we had the choicest weather. I was out all
Yeah.
day, every day for like 3 months solid, and I haven't been out once. It's freezing.
Rubbish.
Pete, what
It's
about
basically been
you in your
yeah. It's
lovely
basically
location?
it's been basically the same here as I look out my window. It's just like really grey and overcast, and yeah, it's been
Ah,
the wettest May on all recorded history from
yeah.
what I remember anyway. But it's just weird because I want the sun to come out, and all the times that I've had time off work, it's just been raining, so I
That's
can't do
yeah,
anything.
exactly. That's how it's been.
Uh,
Uh, but yeah, chat. If you're out there, let us know about how your week's been going. I'm always
yeah,
interested in
we'll,
all of that.
we'll get in. Obviously, we'll get into a bit more of that later.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
we'll crack on with obviously talking to Joe about his, generally his experiences in his life as a
Yes.
whole.
Uh,
You've got a very very interesting story, and it's something that I really want to obviously hear more about. And based on the fact that we have
there it
your book
is.
there, so feel free to promo the book itself a little bit. So
I have
Yeah,
I love those colors on that book cover.
the cover is
Me
so
too.
nice,
It's
isn't it?
so
Yeah,
nice. It is.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's so many little details just in the cover alone. It's really, really interesting as you
It
zoom into
is.
it. You just
yeah. It was by LM Design, a girl called Leah, and I love talking
Sweet.
about the cover because I mean, I'm proud of the book. I think
Yes,
anyone that
Mm.
writes something is proud of it. But I don't know, there's something something arrogant about talking too much about your book, like in terms of, oh, how good is this kind of thing. But the cover I had nothing to do with, so the cover is, it's so nice. It's funny because I think that you get taught growing up that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and you shouldn't. You should read what's inside. Naturally, I need to
Yeah,
say that anyway. But everybody judges books by covers, and I,
I
I think
do.
of
I
I
think
course.
that
do. I do.
I made such a good job with that. It's as you say, the little details when I was sent the proofs. I was looking at it going, oh, the colours are beautiful, and just noticing little details. And yeah, I think she did a fantastic job. It's lovely.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's a really is a
absolutely.
beautiful cover. You
Um,
know?
so to give a little premise to or a little well premise to the chat, Pete, hold the book up again. A little bit longer. This is Joe's book. It's called Checkpoint: How Video Games Power Up Minds, Kick Ass, and Save Lives, which to me is the best title on the history of ever. But I do kind of want to start at the beginning, which is always the best place to start. But Joe, what um, for our listeners out there, what inspired you to write this book? What made you go, this needs to be written down type
Yeah.
moment?
So Checkpoint is a book about video games and mental health and how the two worlds kind of overlap. It probably makes sense to tell you my story in terms of mental health and video
Yes.
games because that's where I ended up before writing Checkpoint. So I was born in 1986, and my first experiences with video games were around the early 90s on the
Yeah.
Atari ST. And
Mhm.
I think the first game which I say it was the first one which I properly experienced was Lemmings in 1991.
Oh, lemons, yes.
I love Lemons. I can still play it today.
What an
Yes.
absolute classic! Like,
Yeah,
it's so weird to obviously think that that game was made by DMA Designs, who then obviously
yeah,
made GTA.
exactly. And but I remember when my dad was talking about it, and I turned 5 in 1991, so I'd have been 4 or 5, and
Yeah.
talking about this game where you are in charge of this little horde of lemmings, and they wear like blue robes and they've got green hair, and you need to take them from point A to B, and like all this really terrible stuff can happen in between times, and if you need to make sure they get home safely. And it just sounded, I don't know, like I'd played Super Mario and things like that before this. Sonic
Mm.
was just on the scene, and they're obviously fantastical, but this just seemed amazing, and I fell in love with it. And I played video games from there on. I had a Game Boy, and then I had the Mega Drive, PlayStation NES, all the way through the PlayStation 3. And in 2008, my uncle sadly took his own life after some financial
Mm.
hardship, which is, anyone who's lost someone and anyone who's lost someone unexpectedly can definitely attest. It was a hard
Yeah.
time for myself and my family, especially the nature of the way that my uncle left us. It was it was hard to process. And at the time, just to go back a little bit, I left school in 2003. I became a plumber as an apprentice,
Yeah.
and then made the natural jump into video games, because why not?
Yeah.
And whenever I say this story, I always say plumber and then video games, so it's like real world Super Mario or something.
Exactly. That's
You're
exactly
my hero.
There's a joke in
Do
there
you
somewhere.
find any
Um,
pipes to jump down? Any mushrooms?
big huge mushrooms and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, but no, at the time when my uncle left us, because I was really engrossed in video games, I kind of threw myself into games, and I'd always used games as a means of escapism, like
Yeah.
almost everybody that plays games, to
Yeah.
have fun, but also to escape just whatever I was doing at the time, and it didn't need to be anything really stressful. Maybe it was just a hard day at school, or it was, I don't know, just I was fed up with something that I was doing, and you can escape into these lovely digital landscapes for a certain
Yeah.
amount of time before you need to return to reality. And in 2008, my reality was quite difficult. So I at the time was playing games like BioShock and Tomb Raider at the time, and really throwing myself into it, really just zoning out of the real world and playing games. And then in 2009, a year after Uncle passed, my girlfriend and I went to Australia for a couple of years and did various jobs over there for, as I say, for 2 years. And then I returned home, and I planned to go to university to study journalism because I'd always enjoyed writing. And the time that I spent away was great. I thought I'd kind of got over, the kind of feelings of loss and bereavement. But I realised that I'd kind of just put everything on pause. So I was kind of feeling some feelings of depression and anxiety. But at the time when I left to go to Australia, I'd only just turned 23. And whilst I knew about depression, I knew what it meant to other people, I'd never experienced it myself. So I found it really difficult to identify what it was. So when I started studying journalism, I was reading a lot more video games magazines, video game websites, and decided that I wanted to go down that path to write about video games. So I started freelancing, eventually moved more in kind of full-time work for the likes of Rock Paper Shotgun for PC Gamer, and in that time discovered a lot of indie games which were tackling themes of depression, suicide, anxiety, OCD, alcoholism, all these kind of really interpersonal, quite somber themes which I'd never really associated with video games before. And through playing games like, I'm sure we'll talk about some of the games as the conversation goes on, but Actual Sunlight is a big one for me by Canadian developer Will O'Neill, and it's about Evan Winter, who's a kind of everyman who's really struggling with the kind of monotony of the 9 to 5. He's a real, not an anti-hero, but he's not what you're used to in video games. So if you're used to Nathan Drake or Lara Croft or these really strong heroes, who can save the world, and those games are great. I'm not trying to detract from them at all. Evan Winter in Actual Sunlight's the opposite. He's a guy who is really struggling with his life, and I was able to play this game, put myself into the game, and draw some real parallels with what I was feeling inside. I eventually sought professional help. I've been taking a course of medication since 2014, and I've had some counselling in between times. And through playing the games, video games which tackle these kind of more interpersonal themes, more somber themes, I was able to identify what I was feeling myself, and I wanted to write more about that. So I had a column with Vice, a monthly column just writing about video games and mental health, which ran for several months. They had a little reshuffle, and the column ceased to exist. And once that happened, I decided I still had more to say. So eventually, in 2019, I pitched the idea of Checkpoint, of kind of getting all my thoughts. It's a narrative non-fiction book, so there's a lot of me in it. There's a lot of me guiding the story as against the backdrop of my own mental health journey, whilst also interviewing developers like Will O'Neill, some mental health professionals, some video game players, and just kind of sharing all those experiences. And that's how Checkpoint really came to be, just pulling on my own story and trying to share the stories of others, and with a means of kind of raising awareness about mental health. I know there's a big discourse going on just now, which is great. You want to see that continuing to grow. But also to show that video games, have a place at that table as well. I think that there's so much literature out there. There's so many documentaries, YouTubers, videos, whatever. There's loads of means to learn about mental health. At times, depending on who you're speaking to, I feel that video games aren't as involved in that conversation as they should be. So Checkpoint was my means of sharing my story, was also tying in, how important video games can be in that kind of educational process.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I found really interesting, is what you said about weaving your narrative journey within the discourse of other people that you'd spoken to along the way. I really obviously reflected quite hard on the chapter where you were talking about that particular game in question, Actual Winter, wasn't it?
Actual Sunlight, yeah.
Actual Sunlight, sorry, yeah. It's it was really poignant at how you obviously laid down everything to do with that game in there from what you had experienced, and I thought it was really it gave me a real picture into what you were feeling at the time that you were playing it as well. And was that something you wanted to come off at that time? You wanted people to try and see if they could take their own reflection on that particular journey that you had through yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think that even playing the game, and again, whenever I'm having these conversations, I said this at the start, I'm not a mental health professional. I just have someone with lived experience who enjoys writing, and that's made clear in the book. It's made clear whenever I'm writing about mental health in any capacity. The same with Will O'Neill, the developer of Actual Sunlight. He's not a mental health professional. There are all the appropriate warnings and trigger warnings and things, content warnings at the start of the game.
Yes.
So naturally, if anyone's watching this and decides to play it, go in with that in mind, that it is quite somber. It's not necessarily a fun experience, which goes against what you might be used to for a video game. And when I spoke to Will within the book, he says that about he was just kind of telling his story, and if people could relate, which they did, because he said he's received loads of really positive feedback about players playing the game and saying, "Oh, I experienced that," not least from myself.
Yeah.
But to be able to, explain the game as I was playing it, what you're seeing through the game itself, and then what I was feeling. That's what I was trying to do with those chapters in particular that you asked about. And I think that again, this is explored in the book, but I think that with video games, and like I'm clearly a video game advocate, but that's not to say that you should only play video games and not read books, or you should only play video games and not watch television, watch documentaries, watch YouTubers sharing their experiences, people on Twitch or whoever. I think that everything should exist concurrently. I think with video games, unlike more traditional media, if you read a book, that's great. You read the book, you consume the information, and then you can move on from there. The same if you're watching something; it's kind of two-dimensional. Like if you watch a documentary, you have the information given to you. But if you're playing a video game, it's you put yourself into it. If you put your control pad down and you don't do anything, that game won't move. So it's about putting you into the game. So even if you can't relate, even if you haven't experienced poor mental health, and if you haven't experienced loss or whatever, you're putting yourself into it. And Matt Gilgenbach, another one of the developers which I speak to in the game, says the easiest way to explain that to someone who's not a gamer or who maybe isn't understanding the way you're saying it is that if you're playing Super Mario, for example, and you die in the game, you say that I died. You say we died. You don't say Super Mario died.
That's right.
No, because you take ownership of or take agency of the character you're playing. So I think that when writing the book, I was keen to show, here's what you'll play, here's how I experienced it. It's kind of like just doubling down, because if you haven't experienced it, that's great, but you can probably be in a better position to understand or appreciate what maybe I was feeling, what Will was feeling when he made the game.
Yeah.
If you can, then that's great as well, because you go, oh yeah, I definitely felt that, or I maybe didn't feel exactly like this, but I felt, I did notice this and I did feel that, and I certainly feel, don't get me wrong, I can't relate to every single part of games which I play which tackle themes of mental health across the broad spectrum of mental health, but I can sometimes pull out little nuggets, and I think that's important for everybody. And I think you do it with everything. You do it with anything that you're playing, any game, any book that you're reading. But putting yourself into it, I'd say that's definitely one of the goals which I hope to achieve. And I think we did a good job of that between the different voices in the book.
Absolutely, that's definitely something that really, really came through. I'll tell you what came through the biggest for me is there is an authenticity to this writing. You can tell it's from you. It's your lived experiences, and you feel that, and it is kind of like almost embodying you as a character, going through this. But what I want to ask is, so in the era of the world we live in right now, we're kind of starting to embrace mental health as a topic that needs to be discussed and things like that. But there's also different things in society that tell us that we shouldn't express our feelings. Let's say, look, I'll lay it on the table. Toxic masculinity, for one. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're not allowed to talk about your feelings. Did you come up against any of that as you wrote it, but also, getting it published and getting it, was it an uncomfortable type thing, or?
I wouldn't say that I experienced it in the process of writing the book or in the process of publishing the book. 404 Inc., who are the independent publishers from Edinburgh who took the book on, their catalogue of books, the people they represent, is kind of stories which, kind of like you said, like authentic stories which they believe need told. They're a fantastic publisher. Anyone should go to 404 Inc. and buy their books. You don't need to buy mine, you just look at the ones that are better than mine.
We'll definitely putting that in the link.
Yeah.
No, I think, but I do think that, like I said, I mean, I'm from Glasgow. I was born in 1986. I'm 35. I spent most of my childhood growing up in the 90s in west of Scotland, and there is that. I mean, up and down the UK, but I can only really speak to the west of Scotland where I grew up. There is that kind of stiff upper lip, machismo. Right. You shouldn't talk about your feelings. Exactly. It's it's kind of seen as a weakness, or it's seen as like masculine and feminine, and if you're sharing this kind of stuff, it's seen as fit. So obviously it's all wrong. But I did grow up in those environments. So I think that being able to, I think that's why personally I've struggled with identifying mental health as well, because you're so used to not bottling it up per se, but just not, you don't even, I think bottling up implies that you know that you have something to share, but you choose not to. Whereas I think that there's an ignorance about depression and mental health if you've grown up in those situations, because you never, if it was seen as a weakness, then you learn for it not to become something which you share, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes
so
perfect sense.
I think the resistance was probably more within, because you've grown up so used to not sharing, and it's about, I mean, any kind of mental health discourse is about breaking stigma, isn't it? I think that we're in a great place now compared to, say, 20 years, say 40 years, say 50 years. I think that in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now, we'll hopefully be in an even better position. One of the stories which I tell in the book, and I use this story quite a lot to kind of illustrate the point about toxic masculinity, and is that when I started writing about video games and mental health, I had some friends, like close friends, get in touch with me privately, maybe on Twitter or Instagram, just via WhatsApp, whatever, and just saying, this is before the book was written, but when I was writing for Vice and other places, and saying, I read your article about, X, Y, and Z about video games and mental health, and I tried to put, like Checkpoint, put everything, all my cards on the table, and
right,
be a kind of, share everything in terms of my own experience. And people were texting me, like some of my really good mates who I'd maybe play football with every week on a Wednesday, or we'd be in the pub every Saturday, and they hadn't mentioned anything, but they text me saying, I've been kind of struggling, I've been seeing a counsellor, or for the last 6 to 8 months I've been taking citalopram medication. And whilst in an ideal world, these conversations, we could have them at football, we could have them in the pub, or maybe as a group, I'm talking very, very personally about my group of friends, but maybe not quite there. But the fact that they felt, able and open to just say, this is how I've been feeling, I get back saying, I'm really sorry even for this, but it's great that you're getting help. To be able to start those conversations, to keep that narrative going, I think that's great. And I think that shows that the barriers of that kind of, again, we're of a certain age of West of Scotland males, that starting to see those barriers kind of fall down. And there's a long way to go, but it's great to see those small steps as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. Something I wanted to touch on there is, obviously you said that, about people opening up and how it's a lot easier now that people can do that, and people are reaching out to yourself because they know that you've written a book, you've been very open about your experiences. How difficult was it for you to initially open up, whether or not it was to a counsellor or to a family member or someone like that?
Yeah, it was really hard. It's really hard. I don't think that you can sugarcoat it, because that's the kind of, people say, talking helps, and it absolutely does. Like, it absolutely does. I'm living proof that it does. But it's hard. It is really hard, and I think that it's the best thing to do. But it takes a lot of it takes a lot of introspection, in the sense of identifying how you feel. And again, speaking to my own experience, I've since been told by medical professionals and doctors that the nature of my uncle's death was what kind of instigated my poor mental health, my depression, anxiety, which has since been diagnosed. But as I said, when I came back from Australia in 2011, I realised that things weren't right. I was feeling really anxious. I was snappy. I couldn't concentrate on certain things if I was trying to do any writing for when I just started university. My brain was all over the place, and I couldn't quite place what it was. I found I was drinking more. Even at 25, I know that especially in the UK, like going to the pub is a it's part of daily or weekly life here, kind of thing. But I found that I was kind of even overdoing it a bit more. I know, but it was. So then, obviously, if you're hungover as well, and you find yourself a bit more snappy, you're trying to identify what's just feeling the blues, and then what is more serious and what needs addressed. And eventually, in 2012, I got an appointment with my GP. The only one they could get was actually on my birthday, but I decided that it was really important, so I should go. And a typical late April day in Glasgow, it was piss and rain, and I was playing Uncharted 2, actually. Like, I hadn't, when I was away in Australia, I had missed, I'd played the first Uncharted before I left, but I hadn't done much game when I was away, so I was playing Uncharted 2, and I was really, really into it and really enjoying it. And then I went to see my doctor, and it was the kind of like video games giving me this escapism, and then going to see the doctor, and it was like bringing me right back down to earth and what was very real. But my doctor was great. I went along with my mum, and this was after a few conversations, I should say, with my girlfriend and mum and dad. That's the people which I chose. which I always think is valuable. You know, if you've got a boyfriend, girlfriend who's got a partner of some sort, if you can speak to them. If not, if you've got a close friend or parents or family, choose someone who, again, for what my advice is worth, choose someone who you know has time to listen, because I think that certainly my experience of speaking to other people, you might have a best friend who you've identified as the best person to speak to, but if they've got other stuff going on as well, it's important to make sure the person that you can speak to is able to listen at the same time without putting too much pressure on them, if that makes sense, because they could be going through something similar and they might choose to be going in a different route. They might not want to be as open as you. So I think that understanding the person, you'll make that decision yourself, that that person is the right person to speak to. After some really good advice from my doctor in 2012, I didn't actually seek counselling until 2014. And in those 2 years between, probably wasn't doing any better. It did feel better to me to go and speak to someone.
Sure.
But it was difficult. It was really difficult to, not just for me. I mean, like it's quite, as much as I hate to say it, it's quite easy to get selfish when you're struggling with depression and anxiety disorder, because you're so focused on you, you're so focused on what you're feeling in here, and everybody's against you and stuff like that. And I know that at times I would have been very difficult to live with, and I do thank Jenny, my girlfriend, in Checkpoint for that, because that's a side of the story which isn't always told. When we mentioned Actual Sunlight before, Will and Neil's follow-up, indirect follow-up, it's not, the stories aren't tied, it's just thematically tied. It's called Little Red Lies, and it looks at the relationship between two sisters, and it looks at the kind of from the perspective of the sister who is living with someone with depression, which I think is really interesting as well. It's definitely worth a playthrough in the sense of you get to see it from the other side. So it took me 2 years after first consultation to really doing something about it. Again, I know I've kind of rabbled on there for about 5 minutes, but
this is great.
It is challenging, I would say, but I think that it's easy to say because it's hard. I felt it myself to feel, you know, I'm not doing enough about this, or I'm comparing myself to someone else. You've maybe heard about someone else who looks like they've addressed mental health issues and they're really handling it well. It is important to focus on yourself. It's so easy to look at others, to look in another lane and see how other people are doing. That applies to everything, but especially with your mental health journey. Without sounding overly profound, it is yours. So as long as we should be kind to others. That's always the overarching message when it comes to mental health, the hashtag be kind stuff, and that's absolutely true. But you should also be kind to yourself, because despite the fact that everybody's journey is important to you, you mentioned being a character in the book. I mean, you're the central protagonist. You need to look after your health bar,
That's very true. Well, let me ask you this. In the beginning of the book, for all of you that are going to go grab a copy here in the next few minutes, actually, before I head on, I am going to ask a question from chat, just because it kind of melds in. Where is the best place to purchase the book so that you, Joe, can get the best cut? Is it?
Well, regardless of the cut which I take, I do think that the best place to buy any book, if possible, is from independent publishers. So I'd say 404 Inc.'s website, which is 404inc.com. I think just if you stick 404 Inc. into Google, it'll be the first one which comes up. Because it's good to support independent publishers. So
I mean, I searched up by the book title and it came up straight away anyway. But I'll post the link in the description.
Is it INC or INK? Sorry.
INK, 404 Inc. INK.
The worst at spelling. But what I really wanted to ask you was, in the beginning of the book, you have a page of trigger warnings, which I've never seen before. That is amazing. Was that your idea? Is that something 404 does, or
that was 404? We discussed that there probably should be content warnings. It was Laura and Heather who run 404 who wanted to. It wasn't necessarily to reflect a video game, because I know it's kind of similar to the way they do it, but it made sense to do it that way as well. And I also had a vision myself of having. I wanted to have like kind of diverse, kind of array of voices, to have my voice, to have the experts, people who know what they're talking about, people who can shed professional light and stuff. And I wanted to have players as well, which you see in the book as the a new challenger enters, kind of Street Fighter play.
I love that.
Trust me, I respected that reference more than most.
He's the Street Fighter person that loves it, but I loved all those headers. Those were great.
Well, I'd originally just saw it as a chapter, just to have like here is a big list of stories of other people. But again, it was Laura and Heather at 404 who said, why don't we have them kind of interspersed? And I actually think like the content warnings are very, very important. I think it's great that the way that they are interspersed with the little flags, checkpoints, if you will,
Yes.
throughout the book. And
Ooh,
yeah,
there we go.
yeah, definitely.
You
But
said
then to
the
also
name.
have I know, but to also have like the conversation being pulled away from me or whatever we're talking about in each chapter, and then have a different story just to change the tone,
Mhm.
and then to bring it back in. Like again, that wasn't it was a conversation, but that was the guys at 404, and I think they did a really good job of yeah, but with the content warnings, but also with those voices to kind of break it up. I think it keeps the flow of the book going really well, which is something which I
It
wouldn't have
does.
been able to do on my own. So yeah, big props to
Yeah.
them.
Well, as a person who has attention disorders, it was actually very good for someone like me because it kept me focused, um,
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
could I could break and go do whatever 5 other 1,000,000,000 things that I do, and then could come back and
Yeah,
center it. And I didn't lose the previous, like that
yeah,
information was still there. So
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
That's great.
you guys together have. I mean, first of all, you've written an amazing book, but I think together with your publisher, you've created
Yeah,
this
definitely.
something to be
As I
very,
say,
very
like
proud of.
it was. I mean, naturally, the story does kind of, it's my experience, which is the kind of springboard for everything else. But absolutely, it was a total collaborative effort over the course in terms
Hmm.
of the structure of the book, and I'm really pleased both with 404's input and also how it came together. Because
Yeah,
the guys there are, yeah,
it's a I'm a little bit over the top type person. Oh, if our chat is completely aware of this. But for me, it's like it's a piece of art. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to experience. It looks great on your shelf.
Yeah.
But it's also just a great look into how games have helped you, and then makes me realize, oh yes, I went through a terrible breakup of a friendship, a very deep, deep friendship, and Red Dead came out 2 weeks later, and I thought I was in such a world of depression myself. I was like, I'm never gonna play another video game again. I'm done.
yeah,
I just the world has ended. Everything is terrible. Catastrophize.
Yep.
And then Red Dead came out, and I just was like, okay, this is me for the next 3 months or whatever, and it helped. It absolutely did.
yeah.
So by the same token, for you, and then Pete, I want you to answer too. But
Okay.
what is there any game that stands out above all the rest as your comfort game?
Yeah, I think in terms of Checkpoint again was about kind of shining a light on a lot of indie games, which
Yes.
if you play a lot of video games, you probably have heard of Actual Sunlight and Never Ending Nightmares and stuff, but they still are indie and they're very
Mm-hmm.
they're very niche.
Yeah.
So my idea was to shine a light on them for people that haven't heard of them, if people have heard of them, to remind them to hear from the people that made them, kind of thing. And again, if anyone's looking for like kind of a broader understanding of mental health video games, those are the kind of games, the ones that I mentioned in Checkpoint, which are definitely worth checking out. But I'm a huge believer in having comfort games in the same way that people would maybe read a book a few times or watch a
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
film, or
Mm-hmm.
if it's television shows, for me sometimes it's Curb Your Enthusiasm or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, shows that make you laugh.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
comfort game is a bit of a strange one, but it's Dark Souls, which is a quite
What?
Okay.
uncomfortable game. But because I think the reason is that, one, I love the world in Dark Souls. I like Demon Souls and I like the games
Yes.
that came later, but I love the interconnected world, and I love the challenge of Dark Souls. So even
Hmm.
depending on what build you're playing, even if I have defeated a certain boss, numerous times, it's still hard. It's still challenging. You still need to know the moves, and it's when you overcome that, the sense of achievement
Yes.
makes me feel really nice. And because I really love the world, I know all the nooks and crannies where all the secrets are and
Yeah.
stuff. It's just a Lodran's a horrible place, right? If it was real life,
Oh.
you'd never want to go there. But I like the familiarity which I've got there, and also the fact that it does still challenge me to this day. I still find that no matter how good I am at the game, there are certain bits where you might get overcome by a horde of really basic hollow enemies that
Yeah.
then you end up dying. And you're like, how can that
Hmm.
happen? But it's the achievement and the overcoming which is for me. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys' comfort games are as well.
Oh, Mine is the one I've talked about more than any on this podcast, which would be Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
Very, very similar to your experience. It's comforting. I know the land, but there's still some surprises, and I always follow the same playthrough. I never always do. I will give Chad a little glance, and then Pete, I want to know yours. Squash and Chat says Planet Coaster is definitely
Nice, nice,
their
yeah,
Good
comfort
choice.
game. Yeah, good
yeah.
choice. I do terrible things in all of the Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster. But Pete, what about you? Give us the surprise of your comfort game, because I already know what it is, but go ahead.
Don't spoil the surprise
I won't.
much. For me, it's competitive gaming usually more than anything. So like Street Fighter and Smash Brothers are like my two ones that I'll go to because I actually don't know why. Like I just genuinely enjoy the games, and I think putting your skills on the line against another person can sort of it shows your strength in some way that you can overcome some sort of obstacles against a difficult task, and
Yeah.
it like in the same that you said with Dark Souls, like whilst it is computer generated, it's all designed in there. It's still difficult because it relies on your skill. This like competitive gaming is completely different because it's against someone you don't
Yeah.
know, and I just really enjoy the challenge more than anything. But um, I think one of my biggest comfort games is obviously Mario World. It's
Oh,
so easy to just
that.
drop in and play that because I've played it so many times over the years. It's just when I'm having a bad day, I can just load that up on the Switch, play it for 20 minutes, and it can somewhat improve my mood a fair bit. Or if it's not going so well in the Forest of Illusions, it can make me want to stop.
Chad, I'm going to take this moment. Shoot us some questions that you want answered. We do
Okay.
have one. Okay, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I did have a question for Joe. How easy was it actually pitching the book to various different publishers, or did you automatically know that you were going to go to 404
Yeah, I
with this?
wanted to. I'd read quite a lot of 404 stuff prior to pitching Checkpoint, and they had a submissions window, and I had thought about pitching it to other people if 404 weren't interested. But I was one of the very fortunate people that I pitched 404, and they took it on almost immediately. So, what I loved from almost the first conversation with 404, even before I'd met them in person, I think that they shared the vision. Like I said before about their input and them putting, because there's a lot of the 404 guys in the book, which I think is great as well. They understood what I was wanting to do, what I was trying to say, and came with their own ideas with it as well. So there's sometimes like I think I like to think. I think everybody that writes something can get precious about what they write. This is my
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
and I don't want to deal with it. I like to think I'm quite open-minded. If 404 end up watching this, they might say, "No, he's an absolute nightmare to work with." But what was great about working with them was any suggestions they had, even if I hadn't thought of it myself, I was kind of like, "No, that makes sense." Take a step back
Right.
and you go, "I quite like
Yeah.
that bit myself," and you go, "No, I tell you what, that's actually better." So in terms of that, I was very fortunate. I appreciate that. I could have 10 more book ideas and they're not picked up at all. Never mind by the first people that I send it to.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is
yeah,
quite an accomplishment, I will say.
Mm.
yeah,
Um, but actually, there's been a little tiny offhand comment in chat that I kind of want to address only because it's also addressed in Checkpoint. Uh,
okay.
One of our watchers, Lynn, a friend of mine actually. Now she plays a lot of mobile games and casual games, which I do too. But
Mm.
and she actually says can't compete with you gamers. But guess what, Lynn? You're a gamer too.
Yeah, I
And
thought that
that
was
is
pretty
addressed in the
poignant.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a really poignant point that regardless of what
Hmm.
game you do play, you're a gamer, like
Yeah,
whatever way.
Even
And
if
I've
it's
mentioned that
Football
to my dad
Manager.
as well. Yeah, the
yeah,
thing is, my dad's picked up more mobile games over the last couple of years. I think it's a way just to sort of unwind after a stressful day at
Hmm.
work. And I
yeah.
say to him, "You're a gamer," and he's like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "Well, you're playing a game on your phone. You're a gamer."
I think that's it. I mean, you guys know as well as anyone. There is a bit of, and it's the same in literature. It's the same in film. There can be snobbery around,
Oh
what constitutes.
yes.
Are you
Oh
a
yeah.
casual gamer? Are you a hardcore
Gatekeeping
game?
and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
What is
Mm,
a
exactly.
what is a gamer? And I mean, again, it's not to criticise if you want to have those those very discernible categories of gamer, then that's fine. You do you.
Yeah, you do.
But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you can have fun playing a video
yeah.
game, if you play Farmville, as you say, if it's a mobile game, if you play Eve Online, where it's numbers and stats and it's very very technical. I don't. I mean, again, what is addressed in the book is the difference between professional and non-professional gamers, because those spheres are so different. Like I mean, I love video games, but I admit that I'm not brilliant at them. There are games which I just games which I struggle with. I've bounced off EVE Online, for example, so many times, and I want to get into it, but it's just too much for me. But the guys who play, I mean, I'm quite good at FIFA, for example, but the guys who play FIFA professionally, it's like different league. I mean, it's. I think in the interest of promoting mental health, obviously that feeds quite deeply into inclusivity, and again, the industry has so far to go in terms of parity in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it's making great strides. But
well, that's it. That's it. And again, whenever I have these conversations, I say I'm a white straight male. I'm in a position of absolute privilege, and I've got no idea really. I mean, I can hear stories and I can say that's shocking, but I have no idea what it's like day to day. But I do feel like certainly with the people I'm speaking to, we are making strides. There's a long way to go.
No,
but in terms of in terms of general inclusivity, I think starting with everybody's a gamer. That's what I think is a good place to start and go from there.
Yeah, I really love that kind of inclusivity. But we've got Dad. Gum you, Kieran. Kieran's just hitting us with these great questions back to back. Okay, let me do his first question. He says he would love to know how Joe started his freelance work and any advice he'd give for a young journo coming up through the ranks.
Good question.
Nice one. So when I again, I mentioned at the top of the conversation, I was a plumber for several years and started studying when I was 26. So I went to university a lot later, 8 years later than most people would. But still, it is like starting at the bottom. I was probably a little bit more confident than I would have been if I was younger. So I do think that had a bearing on how my writing kind of came on. I was freelancing for a website called Beefjack, which no longer exists, but it was for free. I was doing it voluntary. I managed to get to E3 through it in Los Angeles, even though I wasn't getting paid for it. So that was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I know, it's amazing.
When did you go to E3? Was it before it became too mental?
2013. So it was the reveal of the PS4 and Xbox One and all that.
Amazing!
It was amazing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was class.
I watched that one.
Yeah, I did as well. I've watched a fair few of them over the years.
I know I found that volunteering or writing for free is not for everyone. You'll see some sites advertising saying we'll pay an exposure, and people get upset about that. I don't have a problem with writing for free, but as long as it's on your terms. So
absolutely,
exactly.
So to feed back into the confidence thing, again, being a little bit older, I was maybe a little bit more confident, but I still didn't feel confident enough to pitch for paid work in my own experience. So getting the confidence levels to a point where you're able to. And then most editors, certainly every editor that I've worked with, are willing to listen. Again, you guys can attest to this, no doubt, as well. Just have an idea, don't rush it out the door. Make sure, you've thought about your audience, who it's for, what are the key themes and what you're pitching. And just your pitch email should be short and punchy. Don't, I know you might be desperate to show I can write and this really engaging prose. Make it short and punchy. Get it in a paragraph. If you can't sum up your idea in a paragraph, you probably need to rethink to refine it.
Sure.
But most editors are good. The worst thing is, and anyone who's experienced this will definitely agree with me, is not hearing back. Editors are busy, but it does still frustrate me. I still do a little bit of freelance away from my full-time work. When you don't hear back, I think I'd rather have 10 rejection emails in a row than have one lingering and I'm unsure what's happening with it.
Absolutely. I had that when I was trying to get my start into doing some review writing when I was being made redundant from a job, and I submitted to so many places and you just hear nothing, or you just get like cookie cutter responses or anything. That you just need that one outlet to just give you a chance, and it just can kickstart everything, isn't it?
That's exactly it. Yeah, and I had written an article back in 2014. I was still at uni, and it was about, at the time it was when like Dear Esther and Gone Home and the walking simulators were kind of kicking off.
Gosh.
And I wanted to write about why people were doing it and spoke to like psychologists and stuff like that, and I couldn't get it anywhere. And then IGN of all places took it on, and then it went from there.
Oh,
And then
wow.
as soon as having IGN on
That's
the
all you
CV,
need.
but it's just, I mean, a lot of it was perseverance. Like, for whatever reason, that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of outlets didn't think it was a great idea, and then one did. And then after that, and again, that feeds back into the confidence, because you think, I am good enough
Mhm.
to do this. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
getting it
Sure.
sounds really cheesy, but it's about believing in yourself, having the
Oh
confidence to pitch
yes,
and believing in yourself. So,
Yeah,
absolutely. I have to
and
say
and all
that.
these and with the places that were giving you rejections or not getting back to you, did that take a toll on yourself as well? Because you had built it up that you wanted to get into writing in the games industry, and it wasn't quite what you expected it.
yeah, I think, I mean, no matter how used you get to rejection, nobody likes it. So
Mm,
I now work in football journalism in Glasgow. I still do a lot of freelance in video games, and naturally, I was
sure.
able to find time to write Checkpoint. So I occasionally still do the odd bit of freelance in video games, and still get rejections. Even now, I've been doing it for 10 years or so, and it's never nice, because if you write anything, if you send a pitch email, at the point where you've hit send, you think it's good, and
Mm,
I don't know. It's hard not to take it personally. People say don't take it
Yeah.
personally. It can be a number of things. It can be budget. It can be it's maybe just not the right fit. Most good editors will just get back and say, "Nah, it's not really for us." When it
yeah.
becomes a lot more, about a lot more. I don't know. When they address you, that's again I'm going back to when you don't get when you always hear radio silence. When they do address you, it's okay, fair enough, it wasn't for you, and then you can move on
Exactly.
elsewhere.
I
Um, yeah.
I still maintain I have it somewhere around here. The best rejection I ever got to this day was where were they located? They were here in the UK. I can't remember where, but
Mm,
it was two guys that run a magazine,
mm.
and they were like, "Oh, we're sorry. This isn't a fit for us, but we just both wanted to say that your writing is amazing. You're
Oh,
very
lovely. Yeah.
talented. Please do not take this personally. You
Wow.
will go far, but we just can't. It's just not our our
Yeah.
type of thing." And I was like, "This is the best rejection ever. I loved it. Give me more like this."
Yeah, definitely. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. And I did. I even replied, and I was like, "Guys, thank you so much for this. This really
Mm,
helped my confidence and blah blah blah. All the good stuff." But
yeah,
you do get rejected. You do, because there's a lot of ideas, not a lot of
yeah,
time or space in the world to put all those
And,
ideas. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
and also with the rise of the internet as well, there are a lot of people out there who all want to sort of get on board and try and do it as well. So it
Mm-hmm.
must be difficult for outlets to try and pick from various different pitches that
Oh
they're
yeah,
getting.
Yeah, I mean, you'll
yeah.
have heard a lot of people say this before me, but like, some people see it as playing video games and getting paid, and it's not that. You
Oh,
need to love
it's
No,
writing. Yeah,
oh,
so
absolutely
much
not.
more
um,
than that.
yeah,
I can
yeah,
tell them this week alone, reading
Well,
500
yeah.
court documents, and then
Well,
after reading them, writing a script, and then getting an order, or not, I didn't personally get the order, but the order went out. Oh, you can't release this, so you have to go through your
mhm,
thing and axe everything that can't be
yeah.
read out loud. There's work in there.
yeah,
But
Oh, we can also tell the experience of the Doom Eternal review that we both contributed on, where
they sent
as a video
us
editor, I had to spend like 2 days straight, pretty
well,
much, with barely
yeah.
sleep.
because they sent us
We
the
both
review
did
code. They sent us the review code. What was it?
5 days before
Hours
embargo.
before. Yeah,
It
like
was
right
5 days
before.
before embargo, but it was like a 16-hour
Aye.
game, so yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like playing it.
Uh,
And I love Doom anyway, and I was like, "Oh crap, I have to skip this story beat. I can't get this collectible. I need to get But so that actually kind of feeds into this next question again
mm.
from Kieran. He asks, "Have you ever felt guilty playing video games rather than doing something else? Personally, it's something I struggle with quite often, as I constantly feel like I should be doing something productive, which I totally get, even when I'm on a break or have done all my work. Would love to hear Joe's perspective."
I think yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that with not just video games. I mean, it could just be reading a few more chapters before. I mean, even so, at the moment, I've got two young children. One's 2.5, and one's only 6 months. So once we finally get the house quiet, which is obviously never. But no, maybe I should be like, if young Joe's quiet at 10 o'clock at night and I'm tired, I should be sleeping. But I want to read a book and read a few more
Yeah.
chapters, and then before you know it's
Yeah.
midnight and you're tired the next day, and so on. Cycle. No, that's perfectly normal. I think I think I kind of touch upon this in the chapter about addiction in Checkpoint, that video game addiction, I believe it's real. I don't believe that there's a lot of scaremongering, obviously, with the tabloid press and various other outlets, which there's not enough research to have such broadly negative opinions about it. But I do believe it exists. But like anything, in terms of going back to Kieran's question, in terms of feeling bad about things, I think it's about, and it's hard to get perspective, but it's about perspective. I mean, what have you put off, and I believe that video games should be enjoyed like any other form of entertainment, as long as something else isn't sacrificed. So, you're not playing Football Manager or whatever, Warcraft from 1 in the morning till 6 in the morning. You've got work at 8. You shouldn't do that, because then your work life is going to sacrifice if you're supposed to be going to the pictures with your friends or your partner or whatever, and you decide to stay in and play, I don't know, Fortnite all night. Then you've let something else fall by the wayside. I mean, video games are fun. That's the thing which, even writing something about Checkpoint, where it's looking at a lot of games which aren't necessarily fun in terms of what they're trying to convey.
Right.
If you're using video games as escapism, it should still be fun. So, I mean, as long as you're having fun, as long as important things as you've deemed them, and only you can do that. You're in charge of your own schedule. Then again, it's easy for me to say don't be hard on yourself, but it's even if it's person to person, it's going to be dependent on your schedule. So I think it's hard. I do it myself. I still do it myself, but it's just making sure that nothing's suffering. You're enjoying everything in moderation, I suppose, is the most rounded answer I could give to that.
I think that's a perfect dead-on answer.
You have to consider it sort of like anything that has an addictive nature. Really, it is a substance in some way that does alter the chemistry of your brain. It's going to make you feel enjoyment or pain, misery, suffering, depending on the nature of what you're doing.
I think it's interesting just now as well, because like when the pandemic started, I was doing similar things like this, and I was really, as a video game advocate, singing the praises of a time where we couldn't explore digital landscapes. You've got all these lovely worlds, Minecraft, The Witcher, Grand Theft Auto Online, whatever you choose to. You get these places which you could visit freely. It's not the same, but you're able to. Animal Crossing was a good one for people just to go in and chill out and enjoy themselves. But as the lockdowns have rolled on, I think it would be remiss of me not to say that some people will have adjusted their schedule. So if you've been on furlough for a year, or worse, if you've been laid off, obviously that's these mitigating circumstances which nobody'd really seen coming a couple of years ago. If your routines have changed now that we're starting to come out of lockdown, hopefully we continue to do so over the course of the year and thereon, that just keep an eye on how your schedules change, how much you're playing video games. As much as I'm an advocate for them, if you've been playing more of them in the last year, whilst at the start I think that was good that people were using video games as a means of feeling better about the harsh realities around us. As we start to go back to normal, as we start to maybe go back to work away from the house and venture out a bit more, it's like you say about the addiction, it's good to be on top of it, I suppose. Just make sure that, again, you're not letting anything else suffer as well.
Yeah, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with that. Pete, we're probably gonna wrap up here. We've taken a lot of your time, Joe, and we are
thank you so much. It's great to chat about games, and
you've been very generous to us. Pete, do you have any last questions before we I want to do a big overview of where everyone can get the book?
Just briefly, obviously, because Rapid Reviews UK, especially overall Mike himself, has been an advocate and an ambassador for Safe in Our World, and we know that you've done some stuff with them. We've done some stuff ourselves with them as well, and
wonderful.
We think they're an amazing organisation. So, how was it that it came to be that you started working with them?
Yeah, I'm just when I made the blueprint for Checkpoint, I was quite clear on the narrative was going to guide the book, and I wanted to talk about this and go through each kind of section. And one section I was very keen on was charities, and it was through that process. Safe in Our World had only, I think it launched a few months before I started to properly draft the book. But I still get, even though I'm not working full time in games anymore, I still get the PR emails, and I'd seen the masthead and stuff, and I was like, that's really, really cool, and I was really keen to speak with them, and it kind of just went from there. We had a conversation in the book, and I've just did a kind of Q&A with me about Checkpoint, video games, mental health, and I've did the odd thing with them since. But there are so many great video games and mental health charities. Take this, I
Yeah.
mentioned the book as well. Game in the Mind. Game in the Mind's a great. Safe in a World as well, actually. But Game in the Mind is great on Twitter. Like they share a lot of
Yeah.
kind of video games mental health, and sometimes it's very specifically about games mental health. Sometimes it's more adjacent and it's kind of broader spectrum stuff. But anyone who's looking to find out more who uses Twitter should definitely follow the charities. But no, I think Safe in a World particularly, they do some great stuff, and I think this is the essence of people that work at charities. But it's just so honest. Like everybody's got a story. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
is so open and free about their story. And again, like we said at the top of this program, it's not easy. It's not always easy to talk about mental health
Yeah.
and video games and how it impacts your life. But you know, these guys are gamers. These guys have had experience with mental health and a number of different avenues. And yeah, I mean, it's great to see them doing some great work. They're raising a lot of money for charity, and long may that continue.
Yeah.
Yes,
They are. Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
again
Shout out
agree.
to absolutely shout out to all the charities out there, gaming or non-gaming related, that do great work all around the world. They all help in some way, but yeah,
Yeah.
obviously with our focus is obviously on mental health at the moment. So amazing stuff that we
Absolutely.
can now see charities that are really focusing very
Mm-hmm.
heavily on it at the moment, because it is something, and it has been a stigma for many many years, that it's it is okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I mean, again, like I'm not a mental health professional nor am I a charity, but if anyone watching this wants to, shoot me a message on Twitter, my DMs are open.
Yeah,
Again, I can only give the experience, which
of
or
course.
advice through anything that to which I know. I'm
Yeah,
not a doctor, but you know, please do if anyone feels
yeah.
the desire to do so.
Yeah,
Okay, just
sometimes
quick.
I just need a listening ear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
just
Yeah.
quickly, one last question.
Mhm.
Do you find that people?
Oh no. Ah. Where's the fucking? What happened? Okay, it's me, guys. I don't know if you can.